Well, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Helen Jones-Kelly to kick us off and get us started here.
Hey, right on time. We want to be respectful of you all showing up timely, and certainly we want to have enough time at the end for you to be able to ask questions. So good morning. Good morning. I'm Helen Jones-Kelly. I think I know just about everybody remembers. Not, I'm the executive director Adam. And it's my job to welcome you today and to get us kicked off. I'm really glad to see this many people in the room. We've almost maxed out our seating in the room. And certainly we've got a lot of folks on the screen. So the best way to get this information is straight from the horse's mouth. You know, we always tell people we're going to record it. You can watch the recording, you can ask questions, but certainly this is the best way to come around the information that you're going to need. And we're excited because once again, we get to kick off a funding process. In this economy, that feels really, really, really good. I said just a few moments ago to the folks sitting right here that we are a community team of providers. Unlike other jurisdictions, we really do work together. And those of you who are new to this process will learn that very quickly, that we view ourselves as a community team, which allows us to come together in a level of alignment and purpose that keeps moving our system of care forward. So this morning, I'm just going to do a couple of things just to get us started. I talk loud. Can y'all hear me? Okay. I think I have the first slide. I'll just have to use the arrows. That will tell us now. Okay, even the arrows now.
I feel like there's too much.
There's somebody else coming in.
Screen. Here, let me.
It's got a lot
First,
happening.
yeah, let
There's
me
another
minimize this.
Thank you.
Admit them.
There we go. All right. And so since you all can read, we're not going to read it to you. However, if you've not had funding from our board before, please know that we are the responsible entity under the state of Ohio for planning, funding, and as you can see, monitoring all of the public mental health and addiction services within our community. We also have a level of relationship with 8 other boards within our region. So sometimes the work that we're doing also flows over into those board areas, and we call upon you to be supportive for the regional work that we're doing, because we recognize the fact that not everyone who lives in our community understands that they are bound by county lines, nor should they be. We have people who work in the community. We have people who come here and have needs. And we attempt to be as purposeful and as serviceable as possible in helping to meet those needs through the relationships with other counties. So from time to time, there are going to be asks of you to participate with us on a regional basis with our adjoining counties. Our mission is something we're very proud of and something that we stand behind with absolute deliberation. And that's transforming innovative behavioral health leadership and partnerships, that operative word, partnerships, to promote a healthy region. And obviously, because of stigma and the way in which many people lack understanding about the work that we do, you see our vision statement there. No one should suffer in silence. So as we're kicking off this morning, we want you all to be fully aligned as well with mission and vision. And we do, as a result of the pandemic, have an inclusive agreement, if you will, for the work that goes on in our community across all of our providers. We even have a logo. We've all made this commitment to the community that we're going to work together in a purposeful and efficient and effective way. So that is what is really important to us as we kick off. We're going to get into a lot of details around the information that we want to share with you. You all want me to cover this part, or shall I turn it over to the person who's most effective with this information? Where does the money come from? And you'll see the variety of spaces from which our budget is resolved, as well as the additional dollars that we go after for the benefit of all of you.
Thank you, Helen. All right. Good morning, everyone. I think I know the majority of at least everyone in the room. There are some new faces. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tristan Ball. I'm the Director of Prevention and Early Intervention Services here at the Adamus Board. So overseeing really a lot of the work, but you will hear from pretty much all of our directors today as we all have a part in this. I want to talk about where our money comes from. So as you can see here, and a lot of you already kind of know where your money comes from based on the amount of reports you have to do every year. But many of our funds come from the Health and Human Services levy here in Montgomery County. And you'll find that if you are funded in that way, that you are a little more bound to in-county services. We also receive money that is allocated from the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services from the state of Ohio, as well as some federal funding that usually trickles down to the state of Ohio and then comes back down to us, as well as some special grants, which I will actually be talking about one of those special grants that comes from SAMHSA today. And then that goes into grant funding, as well as just our overall budget there. So I'm going to try to not be distracted by people entering the room, but I probably will be, so bear with me. All right, just real quick. And if you guys have more questions about this, I'm happy to answer. We have our continuum of care through the Ohio Revised Code, which really says what we as an Adamus board are responsible for providing or funding here within the community. So as you will see, number one is prevention and wellness management services, which is a lot of what we're looking for today. This is our state fiscal year application for funding. We also have a calendar year application for funding, which usually opens around August, which Kimberly and her team in treatment and supportive services oversee. So what we're really talking about here today is mostly prevention and early intervention services. All right, this just shows how we align our different plans. So as we are looking at what we're prioritizing in terms of funding, just know that we align with our own strategic plan, obviously, as well as our OMAS community plan, the Montgomery County, so the full county's joint strategic plan, and then the public health community health improvement plan as well. All right, now I'm going to kind of get into the meat of what we're looking for this year. So just basic, if you are looking to receive funding from the Adamus board to provide services, we do require either an OMAS licensure for the organization. The only exception for that would be educational entities, such as schools or educational service centers, colleges or universities. So if an organization is not OMAS certified, unfortunately, we are not able to provide funding at this time. All right. All right, so our priorities. So in recent years, and all of you should have received this packet here of our funding priorities and guidelines. So in previous years, I had created an exhaustive list of everything I could possibly think of that we would fund. This year, I did not do that because if you are a provider, you know what we funded in the past and you know what services you provide. So those are educational programs, environmental programs, early identification screening programs. So that's like your SBIRT, and then prevention programs targeted to respond to trauma. So this year, and I will say, we are looking for evidence-based programs. And if you look in your packet, pages 2 and 3 at the beginning have a full list of where you can find evidence-based programs if you're unfamiliar with what an evidence-based program is. And if we're looking for, if you have a program that you want to provide that is either evidence informed, so maybe not quite evidence-based, or is considered a promising practice, we do have some evaluation components that we require as well. And we do go into more detail in this application packet here. So this year, we are requiring letters of commitment or memoranda of understanding, one or the other. I know some organizations are a little hesitant to get MOUs without having funding secured. That's completely okay. We just ask for a letter of commitment. for any organization that you may be partnering with. So many of our prevention organizations work with schools and provide services in schools. So we are going to need a MOU or an LOC from every single school that you intend on providing services in. This is not different from any year that we've had in the past. We always require this. Last year, Adamus took it on ourselves to do that. That was a lot of work. And we were also finding that our MOUs didn't always align with agency MOUs. So we do have in the packet just some like very high level things we want you to have in your MOUs or your letters of commitment. But you're welcome to add from there. This also is required if you are an organization providing services in a different like organization or a different entity from your own. So that say you're providing services for Boys and Girls Club, but you are not Boys and Girls Club, then you would have to get an LOC to say that you're doing that, or any other kind of community organization. Applications submitted without LOCs or MOUs will not be considered for funding at that location. So if you say that you're providing schools at say Northmont and Huber Heights and you don't have any LOC or MOU at Northmont, we will not be looking to fund that. If you submit an application that has no MOUs or LOCs, that you are not providing services just directly within your own organization, then that application would be considered incomplete and not eligible for funding at all. So just keep that in mind. When working in schools, we will give preference to letters of commitment that are signed by a superintendent. We know that it's not always realistic to get superintendent signature. So if you can get like a building principal, assistant superintendent, somebody that's an administrative level, we will consider those as well. And then I have our evaluation component on here. So providers utilizing an evidence-informed or promising practice will be required to use an outside evaluator to evaluate the efficiency of their program. That is fully outlined what we're looking for in terms of evaluation in the packet. All right, so this year we did do a survey to school buildings. Actually, Vic here on my team took that on. He met with every single school district in Montgomery County? Almost, okay. So he's met with almost every single school district in Montgomery County and found out what prevention programs they are interested in per building in this upcoming academic year, or in our case, state fiscal year. And what he will be doing is sending out a list to every single provider of what the schools are interested in. I do want to say school requests do not guarantee funding. And we may be having a meeting with Dayton Public Schools. Yeah, so that information is coming in. We did really want schools to get all of their requests in, but I think Vic took one this morning. We have a couple more that are coming. So please just be patient with us as we continue to get some of these requests out. If you get the list back and you've had a great relationship with the school, or you've had a conversation with the school and the school did not choose your program, that's okay. You can still apply for it. You'll just have to get the letter of commitment and you'll have to reach out to the school yourself. So, and if you are either a new provider or a provider providing a new program, it's likely we did not survey the school about your program. So you'll just have to do that outreach on your own. And then next year we would include that in the list. So quality assurance requirements for all of you that have been with us for a while. I don't think anything's changing. So we do quarterly QI reports. This is like the number of individuals that you served. If you're doing curriculum or delivering curriculum in schools, this is like number of cycles of curricula. And we have an online quality portal that will be shifting next year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just know nothing's going to change. And then we do our annual QI reporting, which is like sending in pre and post tests if you collect that data, and any other kind of data that you find useful and really shows the value of your program. All right, this is different this year. So last year, when providers were submitting their budgets, we we're actually very conscious of looking at consultants and contractors and making providers break out what percentage FTE that individual would be considered. And that's because we really, we're looking at productivity standards. And the reason that we looked so much at productivity standards wasn't necessarily to make sure everyone was doing work. While we love to make sure that you're doing work, that's not what we were doing. It was really to look at, as we implemented those ERIC strategies, those expert recommendations for implementing change, we wanted to make sure that everyone was utilizing all of the strategies, or as many strategies as possible, to make sure that we're properly adapting programs to whatever population you're serving, to make sure that you have time to do all of your data reporting, to make sure that you have time to provide supervision, to do outreach, et cetera, create great relationships with those that you're working with. So all that to say, any staff listed on your budget, whether it's in the contract line, consultant line, whether it's a student, whether it's an intern, whether it is a person that is listed on your budget as 1% FTE, will be required to adhere to all of the following: attending 6 MCPC meetings a year, a minimum of 6. As Colleen has probably told you several times, you can attend 6 within 1 month if you so choose. All of the trainings outlined in the RFP. And again, we're making sure that this is done just to ensure quality of services delivered. There's like a child abuse and neglect training. We want to make sure everyone has some motivational interviewing training. If you're in a situation where you're with a person that needs referral for services. So we do require that. Everyone must have a credential or licensure to practice prevention services in the state of Ohio. That is not a Tristan, that is not an Adamus requirement. That is a state of Ohio revised code requirement. So want to make sure that we have that. And then everyone must meet a 50% productivity standard if they are on a budget. So if they are on the budget for that 1%, it will be very easy to meet a 50% productivity standard, because it would only be required to put in 0.5%. All right, before I move to that, I do want to take everyone to page 2. For those of you online, you will get this information. This will all be posted on our website afterwards. So how we are determining funding, I just want to throw it out there so there are no surprises this year. We are looking at historical spend down of budgets. I will say our prevention providers have been absolutely phenomenal on this year. So wanted to say that. Historical program outcomes and productivity. So if you're meeting productivity and you're serving the number of individuals you said that you would serve, that's a good sign. Interest from schools and community partners for the program, having completed MOUs or letters of commitment. Those two definitely go together, but we will definitely be giving preference to the number of MOUs you have, the projected number of individuals served, alignment of service delivery in areas of the county with the highest needs for specified services. What that means is if you're looking at county data and you see that, there are a lot of youth suicide attempts, then if we can get some intervention programs or some prevention programs into that school district, we're definitely going to be looking at local data to make sure that the areas with the highest amount of need are getting the services. And then obviously credentialing of staff and organizations. We need credentialed staff and organizations. So that is what we will really be looking at. And for those of you that have this in front of you, that's on page 2, one of the first things in this packet. And then this is brand new this year. So for those of you that may be aware, Adamus is a zero suicide in healthcare recipient, grant recipient. And so what that essentially means, and I am happy to answer any questions about this as we go through, is we are looking for several organizations, but for the time being 2 organizations that are willing to implement the zero suicide framework in their organization. So what that requires is a workforce survey to look at how ready providers in your organization feel to deal with a patient that may have suicidal ideation, whether or not you're screening for depression. And if you have a depression screening that comes up positive, then how are we doing a suicidal ideation screening? How are we connecting individuals with care after that happens? So that, and then how are we doing training to really equip our workforce to understand how to handle patients or clients when they are in that situation. So we are this year going to award up to 2 organizations $50,000 apiece to implement this zero suicide framework in their organization. There are several stipulations for this. The organization must serve a 25 and older population. That is our grant requirement. So that's why we are putting this on all of you. They must provide ongoing mental health treatment services, provide universal depression and suicide screening. So this could be the PHQ-9, the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. There are others. This is not limited to this, but just wanted to throw that out there. Have to become a Zero Suicide County Collaborative partner. So the Zero Suicide County Collaborative right now meets quarterly. We'll probably meet every other month once we get new partners up and running. Engage in suicide workforce development for staff provided by Adamus. So Adamus will actually provide all of the trainings that you decide that you want, free of charge. We will make sure that that happens. And then the kicker is conduct GIPRA interviews for clients receiving care as a result of the grant. So I will say this, this grant doesn't require as many GIPRAs as many grants because we were lucky enough to be the first cohort that they required GIPRAs. So again, if you have more questions on that, I'm happy to answer, but just wanted to throw that out there. We're really excited about this and really excited to bring 2 more organizations on board. We currently have 3, so then we will have 5 total providing the zero suicide framework in healthcare systems. All right, some prevention requirements if awarded. We will be doing site visits minimally twice per year, 1 announced and 1 unannounced for continuing programs. Additional site visits may be required if deemed necessary. So if there is maybe a staff person that was nervous or maybe just didn't do their best and we want to see them again, then we will schedule another one. Big ask, and we will, after awards are made, we will make sure that this happens and we communicate this with you, but supervisors are to ensure Adamus has accurate schedules of prevention staff. I can't tell you how many times Bruce has gone out and somebody hasn't been there that day because of whatever circumstance. Sometimes there's a school assembly, sometimes there's a day off, but we just want to make sure that those are always up to date. Tracking prevention services. So prevention services will be entered by program staff on a monthly basis. This is your productivity. Many of you guys are already doing this. And then monitoring reviews, which is some of those audits that my team, mainly Tanaya and Vic, reach out and say, hey, I want to do an audit on these productivity entries. We are also going to be funding youth crisis services, requirements on this. Crisis phone number, triage and screening, having a mobile response and linkage to treatment, and licensures that are required. There's a lot more in here about the youth crisis services, but again, if you have any questions, please let me know. And that is all I have. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Kimberly, and we are going to hold questions till the very end.
No, it's right here. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So I'm going to speak with you briefly about our supportive services for academic institutions. So we are looking at professional education and workforce development programs. And one of the things that we'll be looking at is our ability to build capacity for psychiatrists. We want to build capacity for certified or licensed behavioral health care workers. This is both mental health and substance use related. And we would also like to support individuals in recovery in mental health or substance use disorders and encourage them to return to workforce through educational opportunities. Quality improvement requirements. For those of you that applied through calendar year 23 for treatment and supportive services, you know that some of the quality reporting is still going through our original application for funding, the quality portal that we currently use through Ascend. You will continue to report your outcomes in there until we switch completely to our other system, which you're going to hear about later today, I think around 1. Okay, perfect. In the meantime, outcomes jointly will be agreed upon through the application for funding, okay? This, and they will be submitted no later than 1 month after the completion of the previous fiscal quarter. They must be submitted through the web-based McAdamus portal. However, as I stated, that will be changing. We have our treatment providers on target to be able to transition after calendar year 23, and eventually treatment and prevention will all be reporting through the same portal. Agency reviews, these are levy funded services and on a biannual basis at minimum. I am now going to pass it over to our CFO, Doug Thompson.
Thank you, Kimberly.
You are welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all in person. For those that are on Zoom, good morning. I'm Doug Thompson. I'm the Chief Fiscal Officer for the Adams Board. I refer to people as Helen CFO. I've been here 5 years and we're having fun. I get the question all the time. This is the one I get all the time. What could create my application to be rejected? And it's important that we have these data points. Your UEI number, I didn't make that up. That's a unique entity identifier. That's required. That replaced our DUNS number. If you need help getting a UEI number, unique entity identifier, go to sam.gov. What is this? This is what the feds use to track all the funds that we receive, federal funds. Some of you do receive federal funds. We also need a certificate of good standing from the Ohio Secretary of State. There's a link. And again, many of you are very familiar with this and you submit it each year. We do need it updated each year. You got it last year, we still need it updated. Financial insurance, we need insurance insurance in place. David's going to talk more about that later. Financial audits. You will not get funded if you don't have audited financial statements conducted by an independent CPA firm. Organizational budgets, we need to know all revenue. So if you've got program revenue from other sources, we need to know that. We also need to know what's going into your budget from the expense side. And one of our favorite is the key performance indicators. Utilizing your most recent audit, you will go in and put those key numbers into the new system, and it will tell you automatically where you're doing great, where you need some improvement. And if it's in red, we'll have a discussion. Normally, we'll have one or two that could be in red, but that's something, we can talk it through. It does not mean you won't get funded, just means we need to have a discussion. Tristan made reference to the request for proposal, the funding and priority guidelines for the ones in the room. And I know everyone online is getting a copy soon. Go to page 12. We made some modifications and we want to bring to your attention that we're getting better at defining what's unallowable, your unallowable expenses. I just want to make certain that you're aware of this. We keep discussing this every year and it must be me. So I'm going to try to make certain I'm very clear on this. Equipment levy does not pay for capital. Levy does not pay for capital. So we still see applications with equipment. Please do not include that. Depreciation, it's a non-cash item. We still see that in our budgets. Depreciation is not allowable. I mentioned capital expenditures, but rent, occupancy fees, things like that, those are generally not allowed. Support staff, we pay for direct staff that are in programs. And I know that prevention has a direct versus indirect, but I'm talking about HR, your accountant. Those are all considered indirect staff. Utilities and then insurance. Those are unallowable expenses. Are there any questions for me? Great. I'm going to figure out how to hit the arrow button here. And I think David's up. David Holbrook, he's our Director of Administrative Services. Good morning, David. Thank you.
Morning, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good. So I get the exciting part, talk about requirements, insurance. So it is important to focus on this. So before I get started, I want to call somebody to the front of the room, Chandra Hightower. If you want to come up here, Chandra, please. Chandra Hightower is our contract administrator. So you'll see her name on a few things and she'll be reaching out. This is Chandra. Want you to see people on the camera. Yeah, thank you. So as we go through the contract process, want to make sure we've focused on a couple of important facts so far, but it's really important to remember that you have all the information, okay? So these things that we go over, there's so many details, so just make sure you have the process. So the AFF application, as it says, is reviewed by all staff. So as we review the application as it comes in, okay, then the staff makes a recommendation to the Program Services Committee. That's how it works, and then it goes for board approval. So the board meets twice a month, and then we go for approval after we get the complete information. So that's important, okay? And then the contracts are sent for electronic signature. So it's important to remember those key factors. So here's some of the requirements and guidelines. Doug mentioned about the financial audits, and this is key. He covered that, but I want to make sure that we understand the general liability part. Okay, the general liability piece is key in this. Okay, providers shall carry comprehensive general liability insurance in the amount of at least 1 million with an annual aggregate limit of at least 3 million. Okay, so that's key. So just make sure you realize that. These slides will be provided afterwards, so you can go back and revisit this information. So the next slide talks about additional requirements here. So each column, it talks about the professional liability, talks about the employer's liability, the automotive liability, automobile, the workers' comp. And then it talks about directors and officers insurance. Okay, so there could be exceptions, but just make sure that all these things are included and covered. Okay. So the other information is the funding of the contract is contingent upon public funds being distributed. So it's important to understand this. And Adamus reserves the right to reject proposals and or funding requests less than requested amounts. Any entity that receives Adamus funding will enter into a contract with Adamus prior to any payment of the allocated funds. All funding decisions are final and are contingent upon the receipt of allocations from the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Ohio OMAS. Okay, so that's important information. I told you I had the boring part. So it's like reading the little 4-font legal requirements. Are there, I'm sorry, you're going to wait till the end for questions. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Doug, I think, right? Nope.
I got it.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to give you something else to do.
All right, Vic, would you like to come stand in front of the room as well? I'm sorry, I didn't know that we were doing that. All right. So, so this is Vic. I want to give the biggest shout out to Vic for any of you that applied for funding last year and we're trying to put things in our portal and everything did not go as smooth as possible. You will be able to thank Vic this year, who created a whole new portal for us. So yeah, for real. So Vic has created the new portal. I swear it's way easier to deal with. Like it's so much more streamlined. I guess this will really be the test when we're submitting applications for funding and they're going through. So Vic will be your point of contact for all things portal related because he works with the developers themselves. So you will need to email Vic the following information. So your name, your agency, your title, and your email address. This will allow you to get a login for the new portal. So to create a login, this is the website. You can see it here. You'll click request a McAdamus provider portal account, and then you will follow the instructions. I do want to note, because I don't think we put it out there before, that Vic is going to be doing a tutorial at 1 today online. If you would like to sit through it, it will be recorded. So if you're not able to make it, that's okay too. But if you want to sit through it and ask questions, Vic will be able to walk you through that. Additional information on the portal. So no applications will be cloned this year, correct? Or did you clone applications?
No.
Okay, that would have taken forever. Okay, so applications are not cloned. You will need to put in all of your information, just because it's a completely different system. So we will be starting from scratch. Make sure that you put in all of the information. Honestly, I would say like that you'll have to hit the finalize page to make sure it goes through. But like this is so different that like you'll know if you don't submit it. Did you put in the requirements for OMOS certification financial audits?
They will require to upload that into the new portal. Everything can be uploaded in the portal. Some providers have been emailing me the board minutes and all that. Everything's going into the portal now. Okay, so you will be able to see it if it's in there, and you can delete it if it's in there. Now, when it comes to,
Here, Vic, do you want to speak in the microphone?
yes, when it comes to this part, the online portal access to create a login for existing agency. If you receive prevention funding in SFY 2023, this is where you come in, okay? Email me your name, your agency, your title, and your email address. Preferably to start off with, just give me one person from your organization, okay? I'll walk you through how to add more people. But just to start off, I need one point of contact to email me. And then I'll walk you through how to put information in, where to find it, as well as what it will look like right before you submit it, so you know what it all plays out to. For this one, if you have not received fundings in SFY 2023, this is where you go. You go to the website and you click on the request an MC Adams provider portal account, follow the instructions. It's going to require you 2 questions, the OMOS question, as well as the financial statement question. Everybody else, since you received funding from us last year, your agency is already in the portal. For those of you who are applying this year for the first time, you'll have to go through this measure.
Right. So that's really all we have on this. Again, Vic will be doing the tutorial at 1. Please, if you're able, or you can send somebody, go ahead and do that. But again, we will be recording it. Just quick overview of timelines. So applications will be available today. Vic will be opening those with the portal. And applications will be due March 17th at 5 p.m. We will not be accepting late applications. So please, please, please get those in on time. If you could plan on submitting those a couple days early, that would be best case scenario. Because we freak out as much as you guys freak out when we don't get your applications. And then we will be reviewing applications April through June. So we will be reaching out to you, learning about your budget, talking about your outcomes, what you're projecting. And then we will, as Dave went through the contracting process, we will then take any of our recommendations to programs and services. And then if it passes programs and services, that recommendation will go to our full board of trustees. We will give you all of the dates and times, but we do ask that you have staff present at those because sometimes our board of trustees has questions. Where to direct questions. So the FAQ and PowerPoint will be posted at mcadamus.org. And all questions at this time should be directed to Vic. And he will make sure that all of your questions are posted online on the FAQ. I do want to say, feel free to send me questions as well as some of the other directors. But if you could not reach out to our staff, just because we want to make sure that any question that is asked is going in the FAQ. We do that just so it can help everybody. So now I will ask, what questions do we have? All right, right here in the back.
So the email, the support
is different than emailing Vic about. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for this catch. So this was supposed to be taken out. So support at MC Adamus is not operating correctly right now, which is why it is the variable at MC Adamus for the time being. If we get it to the point where that email address is working again, then we will send that out. But for the time being, send it to Vic. Support at MC Adamus, but go to Vic anyways. Other questions?
When will you be emailing the requests from the districts? You said that you would be sending out.
Yeah, we'll be doing that within the next week. Preferably within the next couple of days. We are waiting on a couple, and like I said, just because we're waiting on DPS, that'll probably be separate. If we do get that, so just we'll hold off on that, but the rest of the school districts will be sent out, the ones that we've met with anyways. Other questions? That was a good one. Yeah.
Tristan, just to clarify on page 10, it says considerations for funding need to be time stamped by 5 p.m. on March 18th. That's a typo. It needs to be March 17th.
Thank you for that, Brittany. Yes, March 17th. All right. Do we have questions in the chat, Tina?
Yes, we do. Will you repeat the question for the microphone? If supervisors do not provide direct services, are they still required to attend all of the direct service related trainings?
Yeah. So the question was, if supervisors do not require direct or do not provide direct services, are they still required to have all of those trainings and probably productivity and all that? The answer is yes. I will reiterate, anybody that is listed on your budget, anybody is required all of that.
And the follow-up question is, for those supervisors, can their time be included in the budget?
Yeah, so the question for those of you online is whether or not supervisor time can be included on the budget if they have to attend those trainings. The answer is yes, that is all allowed to be included and tracked in productivity.
And another question from the chat. Oh, hang on. Coming in fast and furious. Do we apply to participate in the zero suicide opportunity with the same application as regular funding?
Yeah, so the question is around the zero suicide, how to apply for that. So you'll just add it as an additional program in your application for funding budget. So you'll upload a separate budget and then a separate narrative. It can be a lot more brief because there's a lot more what ifs. It's more of like a TA kind of thing. But looking up to that 50,000 amount, you can use that for like staffing or supplies or whatever you might need.
Where do they find the Zoom link for the 1 p.m. training?
The Zoom link for the 1 p.m. training, are we putting it on the website?
We can put on the website, yes.
It'll be on the website immediately, probably.
Yes, and
Okay.
also include it in the email response.
Questions in here? All right, yes.
Yeah, we're looking at adding like a secondary curriculum to any of our programs. We need to talk to you about that in advance. Or we just, the vendor application.
Yeah, so the question was about adding a second curriculum or really even any supportive services onto your current programming. If you need to have a conversation with me or the Adamus team, or if you can go ahead and just apply for it, I will say just go ahead and put in your application. We'll probably have questions about it and talk to you about it, you know, once we get the application, but you can go ahead and just put it in there. Good question. Other questions in the room? Yes.
For a new agency, to be added on those emails, I know you're gonna send it out at when, how can I ensure that you receive that?
So email Vic. And then you can get all of the information on our website as well. So we'll make sure that you get that.
Couple of points that I'd like to bring up. It struck me as we were talking this morning, a couple of things real fast. One is, we said, email the directors here if you have questions. I'm not one of the directors you should email. I always remain as the final arbiter. So I am not involved in any way with the process of reviewing or weighing in on applications for funding. A second thing is the final decisions are made by our board of trustees. You all have a golden opportunity because on the second Wednesday of the month, our trustees meet in their program and services meeting for the sole purpose of reviewing funding opportunities. So the staff brings that information forward on that second Wednesday. You're invited to participate in case they have questions. As Tristan mentioned, they often have questions, especially in this last funding cycle. They have a lot of questions. That's your chance to be able to be present to answer those questions. And then on that fourth Wednesday, they come back to the decisions that they're going to make about funding. So it's a participative process, and we invite you to be part of that if you want to be able to answer questions directly to the trustees as they may have them. But don't email me if you have questions, because I have to remain totally neutral in the process in case a question comes up later. Okay, that's for all the new folks that may not know that.
Thank you, Helen.
Is that meeting held?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that meeting held here?
Oh, the meetings. Yeah, the Board of Trustee meetings are held here as well as the programs and services. Yep.
Tristan, dates can be found on the website.
Yes. Yeah, if you ever need information, it probably is on the website. We post a lot there. All right, what else? Anything online, Tina?
No additional questions online.
All right, well, and I believe this will conclude our AFF bidders conference. And if you have questions, obviously reach out. We will be posting a FAQ online, so we will be updating that regularly. And we will see you at 1 for the tutorial. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day.